Hello, I'm Robert, and this time I'm going to talk about why zombies are impossible. Because some of our members, especially like the younger ones, think that it's are scared about the idea that you might get real-world zombies. And that's the idea of a dead person who somehow is able to come back to life and wander around and do things. So I want to explain why that's not possible. And so first of all, it needs a source of energy to move around. And if the body's dead, then it hasn't got any blood to move the oxygen. And it can't breathe. And so if it's got air entering in the lungs, but it can't breathe in any more air, it can't digest because it's got a rotting stomach, and it's got no way to power its muscles, and so it just can't move. And so there's no way that a fictional zombie would be able to function. It just doesn't work. It doesn't matter anything about what happens to the brain or anything, it's just got no source of energy. And so, where's the idea come from? Well, it's apparently based on Haitian ideas that a malicious sorceress can turn people into living dead. But those, again, they don't. That's rather difficult to... the idea was that they gave them some kind of a toxin that would make them think that they died. But these poisons, it seems very unlikely that even a physician in controlled conditions would be very difficult to adjust the dose to the weight of the patient. They'd either die or they wouldn't go under it at all. So this chap who claims he was poisoned in this way, buried as dead, and raised as a zombie, and actually remember the whole process, but the people are rather sceptical about it, about whether this really happened. And then if they lose their will, it would just be kind of like believing that, because they can't actually do that. So the actual real zombie is impossible. The idea of someone going into a coma and then losing their will again, it doesn't make sense. And the poisoning thing is it doesn't seem like they could have had. So you get all sorts of folk ideas. It doesn't seem like there really were real zombies in that sense. And then there's the idea of the insect that do get complex, so you get a kind of fungus, and this is in a computer game that scares people. The idea of a kind of fungus that would turn people into like these insects, that this is a true thing that happens to this kind of insect. It's a kind of an ant, and it modifies its behavior, so it climbs out of the forest floor and attaches itself to a leaf, and then the fungus grows through it and it just dies, and the fungus grows out of it. Rather horrible. And then it rains spores down to other insects in the floor, and then they do the same. And it's rather mysterious. Much of the body is taken over, but the brain is left intact, and then it does all this climbing thing. It's not very clear how this happens to an insect, but it only happens to insects, and each fungus is evolved to infect one particular insect. And none of them, over millions of years, has ever managed to do the same with animals. So something about insects makes it possible for them for a fungus to control their behavior. It's not quite known how that is, but it's never happened to animals, so we're surely safe from this. And just an infection. You're infected with a fungus, if there ever was a risk from that, you could cure yourself of it. But there'd be fine ways of curing yourself and then destroying the fungus. But no, that doesn't seem that this can happen to animals. So I had to do that because there's a PlayStation computer game called Last of Us, which is based on that idea. But one of the active ingredients in zombified caterpillars turned out to be useful in medicine. Can treat inflammatory diseases such as asthma, arthritis and cancer. It may be able to prevent the spread of cancer. There are various joke pages about it, about ways you could deal with it. If but these are all jokes. They're fictional. They're from movies. It'd be pretty easy to stop, but what they describe is impossible because, as I say in more detail, you need a source of energy to power your muscles. You end up eating food, which react with oxygen, which you get by breathing. And the breathing lungs extract oxygen from the air. They still can't do anything until it reacts with the food in your stomach, and your circulating blood takes the oxygen from the lungs to the food. So a zombie with rotting skin and stomach, heart not pumping, so it's got no blood to move the oxygen, not breathing, so no oxygen is entering the lungs anyway. And there's no way that oxygen can get from the lungs to the stomach without any blood to move it. And then, so there's just no way, once you're dead, then your body starts to rot, then nothing is going to bring you back to life, not once it starts to rot and the heart has stopped. However, it is possible for your heart to go very, very faint and slow, and the blood barely circulating, very cold, ice cold. And this is something that happens with young children, especially. So for young children, if they fall into really cold, icy water, then they can sometimes survive for an hour or more. And people have been frozen for even longer than that. And it's possible that we have some kind of a hibernation. It seems maybe there's a human hibernation reflex. And that's what leads to all these science fiction stories where people go into hypersleep. The idea is that maybe we've got a hibernation reflex that can be triggered. And so, but that's not dying. That's just hibernating like a bear does. So again, you don't need to worry about that. And zombie, this is another joke. Zombie research kind of societies. You've got to watch out. There are lots of jokes out there. It's a thing that attracts jokes. Now, another thing that might get you scared is that people claim a chronic wasting disease. It's called the zombie disease. So you've got to remember, people use these things. It's been in inverted commas. You know, they've in quotation marks. It's not really. These aren't really zombies. These are rather sad condition where a deer gets very, very sick, and it gets very thin, and it's in a bad way. But it's never died. It just got very ill. And these are things that happen, get separated as depression, blank facial expression, lowering of their head, difficulty swallowing, and less interest, but continuous teeth grinding, nervousness, and excitement. They sort of stumble. And it's a little bit like, sort of some of the things a bit like the zombie idea, but it's never died. And you don't need to worry about getting it. There's never been any example of a human being getting it. And if you want to be super cautious, avoid licking rocks and eating dirt in areas where there are infected deer. So that's mainly young children going around licking the rocks where the deer have died. And that's how they pass it from one deer to another. The deer dies and it rots. Another deer comes along and eats the grass where the rotting deer has spread out over the grass. So if you don't do that, then you're fine. But there's no evidence you can get it from eating infected deer. But you're advised not to eat meat from deer with diseases because they might have other infections which maybe could affect you. So don't eat meat from diseased deer. But you're not at risk of this. They've been research into it, they've looked into different ways, and it just doesn't seem. It's a little slightly related to mad cow disease. To get that, you had to eat meat contaminated material from the brains and spinal cords. Even I know some people got that. But some people do get venison, and this doesn't cause any problems. There isn't any evidence that this can spread to humans. So you don't need to worry about that either. And I think that's the end of my zombie debunk. So there's nothing to worry about. It's just a fun thing it's just like the wizards in Hogwarts. It's just made up.